So we talk about centering family and student voice. What role did Noble implement for students and families to share their experience as it relates to creating an anti-racist education?
That's a really great question. So our equity team here is amazing. So Jennifer Reed Davis and D. Nigel Green, who are our leaders in this work and our visionaries in this work, created a space for our families and our students to give us feedback about Noble generally, right? How they feel about our policies, how they feel about our practices, our implementation, all of those things. And so we were able to take that voice and really kind of critically think about, so what are our priorities here? What pivots or shifts do we need to take that are dictated by our people, right? We also then employed what we called our ARC process, or anti-racist commitment process, that consisted of kind of a two-pronged approach, right? We had a design team that really critically looked at our policies and practices to see what do we need to shift, what do we need to change, and then also refine teams, which again is where parent and student voice came in, or I should say guardian and family voice and student voice came in, where we could really assess and give them, hey, this is what we're thinking about doing. Does this make sense to you? Is this responding to the feedback that you gave us? And so they have the space to do that, right? And it only made our work better and ensured, of course, that again, what we were developing, the policies we were reimagining, and the practices that we were reinventing really, really centered the needs of our people.
So you talked a little bit about the design process as well as the refine process. What were those two processes put in place to fix? What were we solving for?
Yeah, so lots of things. I think in this particular moment, what I will focus on is culture, right? And so when we think about how we have used our behavioral system in the past, we use demerits. And what we found through alumni feedback, student feedback, family feedback, right, is that typically demerits were kind of, it led to inequitable experiences for our students. And of course, the overall big picture that we were solving for was to ensure that all of our students had a positive and equitable experience at any one of our campuses, regardless of demographic background, geography, they had a positive experience. One of the vehicles that we really reevaluated to do that was rethinking our student code of conduct. Okay. And what we were able to do is bring a bunch of diverse voices together to figure out, with the feedback of our families, our students and alumni, what needed to be changed. And so we were able to kind of do away with our demerit system and build what we now call the Noble Community Pact, which is a model that is reciprocal, that it engages families, it engages students, but it also has some responsibilities for adults in the space in addition to students, right? We all have a part in building positive culture at our campuses, and we're all a part of that community. And so we laid out ways that we responded to behavior, still a response, but ways that we truly believe will move the behavioral growth needle for our scholars, right? So we know that in the past, assigning detentions oftentimes didn't really change the behavior for some of our students. And so being able to think creatively about what this research says actually does move that needle, what has worked, right, with other kind of stakeholders or other groups or educational organizations around the nation, and how do we think about the context of Noble and what may work for us? And that's really what birthed the Noble Community Pact, right? Especially considering all that we are going through right now, right, in a pandemic, and oftentimes for the communities our students are living in and come from, and the communities we serve, disproportionately is not just a health pandemic, but a racial one, an economic disparity. It's all of these layering things that impact their experience. How do we ensure when they walk through our doors that they're valued, affirmed, loved, and welcomed? And so that is really what the Noble Community Pact is. It is a way to operationalize what does that look like for our buildings.
Before you continue, can you clarify for our listeners, like, the Noble Community Pact consists of, what's the approach and the philosophy
of that? The Noble Community Pact is grounded in restorative practices, social emotional learning, in terms of what our response to behavior is. So instead of, like, one of the things that we say is with our demerit system, I'll back up a little bit here. With our demerit system, it was typically a that's one, right? Or that's four. And that was really the response, and that was it. And we continued on with our day. What NCP moves and pushes us to do, instead of saying that's one, we now ask why, right? Why is this behavior occurring in this context? What is it communicating to me? What is the student's needs in this moment? Can I address it, or do I need to call in for help, right? So that is really the core of what the Noble Community Pact is. Many of our things. However, what I will highlight is some of the wins. It's just the anecdotes, right, and the feedback that we've gotten from adults.